Good morning and welcome to our weekly COVID-19 update briefing. Today is October the 1st, 2020. In Bossier Parish, as of today, we've had 3,303 positive cases. That's an increase of 119 since our report last week, but the good news is that's only about half of what we experienced last week. Unfortunately, we did increase one more death, bringing our total deaths to date, as of today, to 107. The state deaths are a whopping 5,321. So, tremendous, devastating effect on our state. We remain in phase 3 of the recovery, and at least for another week until October the 9th, or as extended by additional proclamations or canceled if the governor so chooses. I anticipate that the governor will announce on or about 6 October what changes, if any, we can expect in phase 3 going forward after the 9th of October. As I pointed out last week, the grading criteria of the federal grading guidelines have not changed. But those guidelines do provide a caveat that although you can't, the local officials can tailor the criteria to meet the local circumstances. Governors can make things more restrictive, but they can't make them less restrictive than the federal guidelines require. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot let our guard down. We should and must continue our prevention and mitigation procedures if we're to function safely, continuing in phase 3 and not regress into a lower phase during the recovery. As I indicated last week and confirmed today, there has been only one significant change in phase 3 guidance, and that was bars may now sell alcoholic beverages one more hour, which they can now sell alcoholic drinks up to 11 o'clock at night, and bars must still close at 11 o'clock at night. So that's about the only significant change of which I'm aware at this point. But like I stated, the COVID-19 has not gone away, and it's been mandated and directed that we continue face coverings, that every individual in Louisiana, age 8 or older, shall wear a face covering over their nose and mouth inside a commercial establishment or any other building or space open to the public, whether indoor or outdoor. And this order is, and this also includes public and commercial transportation modes, and this order is applicable statewide. Some disturbing news, according to the Center for Disease Control, in a study that has been done recently, young children are more likely to contract and transmit the coronavirus than previously believed. The Center for Disease Control now is recommending that children 2 years of age and older wear a mask. As we know, many individuals are asymptomatic, but they can still spread the disease, causing serious illness and death. So we encourage our young people to comply with our prevention and mitigation protocols like everyone else. So what can we do to improve the economy, to remain in phase 3, and wait for a safe and effective vaccine? They haven't changed. First, the governor has stated that it's incredibly important that we continue these prevention and mitigation procedures, and I'll summarize them for you as I do weekly. Wear the mask. Wash hands at least 20 seconds. Cough into the bend of your elbow. Do not touch your face. Disinfect surfaces such as rails, telephones, knobs, all those sorts of things. Social distance at least 6 feet. If you're sick, stay at home and consider and follow the advice of your medical provider. And as a generalization, crowds should be avoided for obvious reasons. Next, it's highly recommended we all get our flu shots and do it as soon as feasible. The Center for Disease Control and the governor has urged that we get these vaccinations to help prevent the problem of compounding this flu season on top of COVID-19 and the surge that could be resulting from those overlapping medical issues. The effects of the Labor Day weekend are not yet clearly known, but they're not quite as bad as locally as they have been. So the number of cases and the number of deaths is a little bit encouraging. However, the bad news, as I heard as of last night, there were some 31 states that are experiencing a surge in the virus. So ladies and gentlemen, it isn't going away. We've got to continue what we're doing. On another issue, the subject of absentee voting as it affects people and what this pandemic has done to them. The general election on November 3rd, a judge has ruled that we will follow the same rules for absentee voting as we did during the recent July and August elections. So there are some exceptions, and they are as follows. The exceptions are that voters in a medically necessary quarantine and those experiencing symptoms or awaiting diagnosis, those caring for someone who is quarantined, and those whose conditions that could lead to a higher risk of contracting the virus. And finally, the requirement for in-person voting for the first-time voters is waived. So those are the exceptions to the broader guidelines for voting in the upcoming November 3rd general election. It's interesting to note that the Louisiana legislature has called themselves back into a special session, which they did on September the 28th, and it'll be for 30 days, extending through October the 27th. Their agenda has no less than 70 items on there, which is unusual for a special session, but of particular interest is some of the 70 items are considering challenging the governor's authority under the Louisiana Emergency Procedures Act. Some legislators expressed their concerns that the governor's actions are too strict and too harmful to business, and the Senate has passed a bill in the special session which would require the governor to go to a special legislative committee of some 10 people before extending an emergency greater than 30 days. This bill does not give them the authority to overturn the governor's actions, but it's my understanding that it would take a petition for a majority of both House and Senate members to overrule his veto. And it is likely that he would veto them. Any attempt to reduce the governor's powers under the Emergency Act, he has indicated he would veto, so it's a probability that should that occur, it will require judicial involvement to resolve. The governor has stated repeatedly that he has followed the guidelines of the White House, the Federal Task Force, and the Center for Disease Control in all his actions. And these actions were merited by the significant impact that the virus has had on the state of Louisiana and all our deaths that we've had. And he continues to follow the advice of the task force and the medical community. The governor states that to abandon these efforts in defiance of public health and federal guidelines would jeopardize the lives of people and the gains that we have made. He cautioned that we not retreat from progress and that the state has made under his COVID-19 executive orders. He warns to do so would seriously jeopardize the fight against the virus. The governor has also said that you cannot manage emergencies by committee. It's just not effective. So that's his position. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I have observed that many of our citizens and businesses are complying with the prevention and mitigation protocols. Thank you for doing so and urge you to continue. On a different subject, the annual census, every 10-year census. The good news is that the deadline for completing this census form has been extended through Monday, October the 5th. So I urge everybody that hasn't registered to do so. Why is it so important? Well, as I mentioned last week, the count is determines the number of congressional seats the state is entitled to. It affects the funding for schools and hospitals and roads. It affects food security, community needs, neighborhood needs, and many other things. So it's important that everybody who has not done so, complete their forms and take advantage of this extension. You can find out more about this subject if you wish by visiting my2020census.gov. That's my2020census.gov. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's briefing. Our next briefing will be Thursday, October the 8th. Thank you and good day.